Welcome back to the Paranormal State, Washington, and UFO UAP. With Makāula Nakae, a lifelong experiencer and ET contactee since 1990. Today's episode, 1950s contactee Aladino Félix and Jezu, Brazil. The Ganymede Prophet, Aladino Félix and the Jezu phenomenon. In the pantheon of mid-century contactees, the Brazilian experience is often defined by the singular, intense figure of Aladino Félix, who became widely known by his esoteric pseudonym, Jezu. Operating in a nation with a rich historical tradition of spiritism and religious syncretism, Félix's narrative fused the global UFO panic with the local Brazilian cultural fervor for mysticism and channeled wisdom. His story, which exploded in the mid-1950s, was not merely about seeing a saucer. It was about a comprehensive, life-altering mission to re-educate humanity using knowledge brought back from the moons of Jupiter. While his American counterparts were focusing on Venus, Mars, or mysterious hidden planets, Félix claimed his primary guides hailed from Ganymede, the largest moon of Jupiter. In the mid-1950s, he asserted that he had been contacted by entities from this Jovian satellite, who took him aboard their craft. Félix described the beings from Ganymede as exceptionally advanced both technically and morally. He characterized them as guardians of the solar system, beings who had long ago mastered the mastery of atomic forces and now viewed Earth with a mix of pity and concern. The name Jezu, often associated with deep spiritual authority in the Brazilian context, reflected the weight he placed on his mission. He didn't see himself as a contactee in the casual sense. He saw himself as a chosen vessel for a divine instruction manual intended to pull humanity back from the brink of self-destruction. Félix's writings and public lectures focused on a rigid, almost mathematical set of universal laws. He argued that the universe was governed by fixed, immutable principles of energy and morality, and that humanity's current trajectory was a direct violation of these laws. Like his international peers, Félix was obsessed with the dangers of the atomic age. However, his framing was unique. He viewed atomic energy not just as a bad choice, but as a vibrational misalignment. He taught that by splitting the atom, humanity was releasing chaotic, disharmonious energies that were disrupting not only the Earth, but the delicate magnetic balance of the solar system. The Ganymede visitors didn't just warn him. They provided him with a grim prognosis. They allegedly told him that Earth was being monitored, and if humanity persisted in its uncontrolled radioactive experiments, the balance would be restored, with or without our consent. To understand Aladino Félix, one must understand the Brazilian environment. Brazil has a deeply rooted culture of espiritismo, spiritism, which encourages the belief in communication with spirits and the existence of multiple planes of reality. Félix was not just a lecturer, he was a prolific writer. He channeled his experiences into a series of books that blended UFO phenomena with traditional Brazilian spiritual philosophies. This made his work incredibly accessible to a broad segment of the population that was already comfortable with the idea of channeled communication. His message hit a nerve in Brazil's rapidly modernizing urban centers. As the country shifted from an agrarian society to an industrial powerhouse, many felt the spiritual vertigo of rapid change. Félix's warnings against materialism and atomic pride served as a rallying cry for those who felt the modernization of Brazil was coming at the cost of the nation's soul. Aladino Félix's influence endured long after the 1950s. He became a staple of Brazilian ufology and spiritual literature, helping to establish a unique Latin American style of contactee narrative, one that was less concerned with Cold War geopolitical defense and more concerned with the spiritual evolution of the species. His focus on the Ganymede connection introduced a new geographic location to the contactee map. Jupiter's moon became a symbol for a higher level of wisdom further away, more stable and more authoritative than the war-torn Venusian narratives popular in the U.S. Félix remains a testament to how the UFO phenomenon adapted to local needs. By taking the space brother concept and marrying it to the deep, resonant traditions of Brazilian mysticism, he didn't just create a UFO story. He created a spiritual movement that validated the experiences of thousands of Brazilians who were looking for a sign from the stars in their own cultural language. Even today, Aladino Félix, Jezu, is remembered as a pioneer who utilized the saucer as a conduit to discuss the deepest questions of existence, not just where the visitors came from, but what their arrival demanded of us as a collective human spirit. Stepping into 1950s Brazil shifts the UFO narrative away from American desert highway patrols and British bureaucratic secretarial pools into a deeply spiritual, vibrant landscape. While mid-century Brazil was overwhelmingly Roman Catholic on paper, it was a brand of Catholicism, heavily cross-pollinated with Spiritism, specifically the Kardecist variety brought over from France, and syncretic folk traditions. Traditional Catholic dogma coexisted comfortably with table-turning seances, mediumship, and an absolute cultural acceptance of communicating with discarnate spirits, souls, and cosmic entities. When a Brazilian in the 1950s looked up at the stars, they didn't see an empty, hostile void of cold physics or Soviet nuclear threat. They saw a grand, populated hierarchy of spiritual evolution. Interfigures like Aladino Félix, who wrote under the pen name Bruno Jumbo, are claimed identities tied to cosmic figures. In 1950s Brazil, contactees didn't just claim a friendly chat with a guy named Orion, they channeled profound, mystical, and often deeply messianic revelations. Aladino Félix's encounters, frequently involving a mysterious space entity named Jezu, blurred the lines between Christian redemption, advanced extraterrestrial technology, and spiritual mediumship. To a Brazilian audience steeped in Spiritism, an alien was essentially a more evolved spirit wearing a spacesuit instead of a ghost sheet. Global Contact, a 1950s cross-cultural comparison. How did the global experience of the 1950s UFO phenomenon play out across different regions? It comes down to local anxieties and cultural lenses. 1950s America, the Cold War panic and the sci-fi frontier. Driven by atomic anxiety, red scares, and wide-open desert landscapes. American contactees met space brothers who warned humanity about nuclear annihilation, framed in a sleek, hardware-heavy pulp magazine aesthetic. 1950s England, the stiff upper-lip bureaucracy. Epitomized by George King, where cosmic contact required parliamentary structure, rigorous Raja yoga, and a disciplined press-civil servant approach to saving the planet from entropy. 1950s Brazil, the Spiritist revival. Grounded in fervent Christian Spiritist syncretism, where flying saucers were practically divine chariots, and contactees acted as mediums bridging advanced celestial evolution with earthly soul cleansing. 1950s Africa, colonial realities and alternate realities. While the Western media spotlight focused on white American and European contactees, various regions across the African continent were navigating the heavy tremors of late colonial upheaval, making local interpretations of anomalous skies deeply tied to shifting political sovereignty, traditional cosmologies, and resistance against European frameworks. If you drop a 1950s contactee, whether it's an American diner frequent, George King with his prayer battery, or Aladino Félix channeling Jesu modern 2026 social dynamics, the disconnect is staggering. Then versus now, 1950s contactees sought grand organizational structures and absolute truths. They wanted the interplanetary parliament, the Vatican, or the United States government to step in and provide cosmic guardrails. Modern society, by contrast, operates on decentralized skepticism, internet memes, and algorithmic echo chambers. The spiritual shift. While in 1950s Brazilian seekers saw spaceships through the lens of Catholic Kardecist spiritual evolution, a modern seeker is just as likely to frame UAPs through quantum mechanics, simulation theory, or interdimensional consciousness hacks. Ultimately, humanity's cosmic panic hasn't changed a bit. We are still desperately looking up at the sky, hoping someone more evolved will drop by and fix our mess. The only difference is that back in the 1950s, we expected them to land in a flying saucer with a clipboard. Today, we're just waiting for them to break the internet. To translate the spirit of 1950s Brazilian contactees like Aladino Félix, writing as Dino Craspadon, who blended cosmic encounters with deep critiques of human society, physics, and social reform. For a modern secular generation, you have to strip away the dogmatic mysticism and messianic framing. Stripped of mid-century esoteric and religious phrasing, Félix's core philosophical cue, and as translated into modern conceptual frameworks. From divine cosmic decrees to systems critique and macro thinking. The 1950s phrasing, receiving high-level secrets from an extraterrestrial visitor or cosmic intelligence regarding humanity's deep social flaws and moral decay. The modern translation, high-level macro analysis, and systemic critique. Today, this translates to looking at flawed global socioeconomic structures, tech monopolies, and environmental collapse through a lens of radical systems engineering, asking, how do we redesign our civilization before it breaks? From advanced interstellar physics to complex science literacy and sci-fi realism. The 1950s phrasing detailed esoteric breakdowns of astrophysics, gravity, and universal laws delivered by a mysterious visitor. The modern translation popularized theoretical physics and speculative futures. Modern audiences don't need a disguised space traveler to explain advanced concepts. They turn to quantum mechanics, astrophysics podcasts, and science communication, like Sabine Hossensteiner or Brian Cox, to stretch their understanding of reality. From spiritual evolution redemption to conscious evolution and social responsibility. The 1950s phrasing, preparing the soul for a higher dimension of existence and correcting human spiritual malady. The modern translation, active ethical alignment in a tech-driven world. It reframes self-improvement away from salvation and toward mindfulness of how individual and collective choices impact the global commons, combining technological progress with ethical maturity. To make a 1950s Brazilian contact narrative work for a modern digital generation, you drop the prophetic savior complex and treat it as an early blueprint for speculative philosophy. It becomes a reminder that when humanity faces deep societal turbulence, our greatest instinct is to imagine an outside perspective, forcing ourselves to look back at Earth and ask how we can build a more rational, sustainable world. To be continued. Watch and listen. Watch the cinematic video trailer. Listen to the full podcast now. Explore the archive Cosmic Awakening Volume 1, 1991, Peru, Journey into the Unknown. Sacred Valley of the Incas. Volume 2, Ascension 2012, The Golden Alchemy. Part 3, The First Contact and the Paranormal State. Join the journey. New episodes drop periodically. Each chapter delivers a tight, hyper-focused 10 to 30-minute exploration into the evolution of ufology, perfect for your daily plunge into decoding hidden messages from outer space, designed to raise awareness and foster human evolution. Subscribe to support your inner development. Thumbs up to help push our channel through the algorithm. Comment below. Share your thoughts on today's episode.